The emergency klaxon cut through the council chamber like a knife. Every delegate turned their attention to the main display as it flickered to life. What they saw made several species cry out in their native languages. The universal emotion was fear. The sensor feed showed the galactic rim, where civilized space ended and the vast darkness between galaxies began. Something was moving there. Thousands of contacts, each one massive, emerging from the void like nightmares made real. High Magistrate Vreltoth stood frozen, his mandibles locked in place. "It cannot be," he whispered. "They have been dormant for 2 centuries. "What are those things?" Commander Taesung asked. He had been observing the session and moved closer to the display. Admiral Kira answered, her energy form flickering with colors that suggested deep fear. "The Void Swarm. They are a biomechanical intelligence, part living creature and part machine. They exist only to consume and grow. 200 years ago, they emerged from dark space and destroyed 7 civilizations before we managed to drive them back. We thought they were gone forever. How did you defeat them?" Taesung asked. "We did not defeat them," Vreltoth said quietly. "We barely survived. We lost millions of ships. Entire species went extinct fighting them. In the end, we drove them into hibernation through overwhelming numbers and sacrifices we do not like to remember, and now they have returned." The display zoomed in on one of the swarm vessels. It was grotesque, a combination of organic tissue and mechanical components. Weapons grew from its hull like tumors. Its surface writhed with movement. Just looking at it made several delegates uncomfortable. "Why are they so dangerous?" Lieutenant Hana asked. She had joined Taesung at the display. Admiral Kira pulled up historical files. "The swarm adapts. Their technology learns from every encounter. After the first few battles, they had already modified their defenses against our plasma weapons. They developed shields that specifically countered our energy attacks. They created countermeasures for our quantum targeting systems. Every ship we destroyed taught them how to survive the next attack." She showed recordings from the previous war. Elegant alien warships engaged the swarm. At first, they succeeded, destroying swarm vessels with concentrated fire. But as the battle continued, the swarm changed. Their shields adapted. Their hulls morphed. Their weapons became more effective against their specific enemies. "They are living evolution," Kira continued. "They learn and adapt faster than we can change tactics. By the end of the last war, our most advanced weapons were nearly useless against them. Only overwhelming numerical superiority allowed us to prevail." Vreltoth studied the current sensor readings. "Their fleet is smaller this time, perhaps only a few thousand vessels. But they will have remembered everything from the last war. All our current ships, all our advanced technology, they will already know how to counter it." A heavy silence fell over the chamber. The implications were clear. The galaxy's most powerful civilizations had built their fleets to fight each other, using refined and elegant technology. That same technology would be exactly what the swarm knew how to defeat. Ambassador Jiwan spoke quietly. "Perhaps you need something different. Something the swarm has never encountered before." Everyone turned to look at her. Vreltoth's compound eyes focused intently. "You cannot be suggesting what I think you are suggesting." "The swarm adapts to advanced technology," Jiwan said calmly. "They learn from sophisticated weapons and elegant designs, but they have never fought humans. They have never encountered our crude, primitive, simple approach to warfare." Admiral Kira flickered with sudden understanding. "Your weapons are unlike ours. Kinetic projectiles, chemical explosives, simple nuclear reactions. The swarm has no experience with such basic technology. They might not adapt as quickly." "Your thick armor does not rely on energy shields," Vreltoth added, his thoughts racing. "The swarm excels at disrupting energy-based defenses. Physical armor might resist their adaptation." "And your crews," Kira said, excitement growing in her voice. "You use humans to fly fighters and operate systems manually. The swarm disrupts electronic warfare and targeting computers. Human intuition and creativity might be exactly what we need." Taesung listened to this exchange with a carefully neutral expression. Finally he spoke. "You mocked our ship 3 days ago. You called it crude and primitive. Now you want our help?" Vreltoth met his gaze. "Yes, I was wrong to dismiss your capabilities. I allowed arrogance to cloud my judgment. Now I'm asking, will humanity help defend the galaxy against the Void Swarm?" Taesung looked at Ambassador Jiwan. She nodded slightly. He pulled out his communication device and contacted Earth Command directly. The response came quickly. Within hours, human fleets began mobilizing across all colonies and stations. The Galactic Council watched in amazement as the human response unfolded. 12 supercarriers like the Indomitable emerged from Earth's orbital shipyards. 40 battleships, each one massive and covered in armor and weapons. 200 support vessels carrying supplies, fuel, and raw materials for manufacturing. The fleet was enormous, and every ship looked like it had been built for war. Captain Minho received his orders while the Indomitable was still completing repairs at the proving grounds. He read them carefully, then addressed his crew over the internal communications. "All hands, this is the captain. We have been asked to join the defense against something called the Void Swarm. I will not lie to you. The situation is serious. These creatures destroyed civilizations and consumed entire worlds. The galaxy's most advanced species barely survived the last encounter. Now they are asking for our help because our crude, primitive, simple ships might be exactly what is needed." He paused, looking around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They were tired from the demonstration and repairs. They were far from home, but they were ready. "The aliens laughed at our ship," Minho continued. "They called it a museum piece. They said we were primitives playing at war. They were wrong. We are not primitives. We are humans. Our ancestors survived ice ages and droughts and plagues. They crossed oceans and deserts and mountains. They reached for the stars with nothing but determination and refused to quit when things got hard. That heritage is in our blood. That strength is in this ship." He stood up from his command chair. "The galaxy is about to learn what human stubbornness really means. All stations prepare for combat operations. Engineering, I want every system at maximum readiness. Weapons, load everything we have. Fighter wings, prep for extended operations. We are going to war, and we are going to show them what Crude can do." Across the ship, 5,000 humans responded. They had trained for this. They had built their vessel for this. Now they would prove that humanity belonged among the stars. The human fleet gathered at a staging point near the council station. Thousands of alien ships assembled alongside them. The contrast was stark. The alien vessels were sleek and beautiful, glowing with contained energy. The human ships were dark and angular, bristling with weapons marked with the scars of testing and training. Ambassador Jiwan stood on the observation deck, watching the fleet prepare. Freltuth joined her, his mandibles clicking softly. "Your ships look out of place among ours," he said. "Yes," Jiwan agreed. "They always have. But that is the point, is it not? We are different. We came to space through a different path. Perhaps that difference is what the galaxy needs right now." Admiral Kira floated nearby, her form bright with determination. "I have studied your history extensively over the past 3 days. I have one question that troubles me. Humanity has spent thousands of years perfecting warfare. You have built weapons of terrible power. You understand destruction at a fundamental level. What happens when humans decide to build something truly advanced? When you combine your determination with sophisticated technology?" G1 smiled, but it was not a comforting expression. "Let us hope, Admiral, that you never have to find out. For now, be grateful that we are on your side." The fleet began to move, human ships and alien vessels together, heading toward the galactic rim where the Void Swarm waited. The journey would take days. The battle would be terrible. The outcome was uncertain, but as the Indomitable jumped to FTL, Captain Minho felt confidence. His ship was not elegant. It was not sophisticated. It was not beautiful. But it was strong, and it was crewed by humans who refused to quit. Wing Commander Deho sat in his fighter waiting in the launch bay. Around him, 300 pilots did the same. They checked their weapons, their systems, their resolve. They knew what was coming. They knew they might not survive. But they were ready. Chief Engineer Yuna worked in her domain, ensuring every reactor ran smoothly, every factory was operational, every system had redundancy. She had built this ship with her own hands. She would keep it running no matter what the swarm threw at them, and in the crew quarters, thousands of humans prepared for war. They wrote letters to family back home. They checked their equipment. They told jokes to ease the tension. They remembered why they had joined the fleet. To explore, to defend, to prove that humanity deserved its place among the stars. The galaxy had mocked them, called them crude, dismissed them as primitives. Now those same civilizations were counting on human stubbornness to save them from annihilation. The irony was not lost on anyone. The proving grounds existed in a remote asteroid belt, far from any inhabited worlds. This was where the Galactic Council tested new weapons and ships. Old stations drifted here, their hulls scarred from previous demonstrations. Asteroids marked with targeting indicators floated in the darkness. Combat drones waited in storage bays ready to simulate any threat. Thousands of observers had gathered. Their ships filled the safe zone, a designated area protected by powerful shields. Everyone wanted to watch the humans fail. Some had placed bets on how quickly the Indomitable would be disabled. The general consensus was less than 10 minutes. Commander Taesung stood on an observation deck aboard a council vessel. Next to him, Lieutenant Hana watched the empty space where their ship would arrive. Ambassador Jiwon spoke quietly with other diplomats, her face revealing nothing. "They are late," Vreltoth commented, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction. Perhaps they have reconsidered this foolishness. At that moment, space tore open. The arrival was nothing like the smooth transitions alien ships made. This was violent. Reality seemed to split and something massive forced its way through. Energy crackled. Space itself appeared to groan under the strain. The Indomitable emerged from FTL like a whale breaching the ocean surface. Its arrival sent sensor readings spiking across every ship in the area. When the distortion cleared, the human supercarrier hung in space like a metal mountain. The observers fell silent. Seeing the ship in person was different from viewing a hologram. It was truly massive, larger than many space stations. Its hull was dark gray, marked with the scratches and scars of testing. Weapon batteries covered its surface like mechanical barnacles. Heat vents glowed faintly red. The whole vessel seemed to radiate power. Not the elegant, controlled power of alien ships, but something rawer and more dangerous. "It looks like someone built a fortress and taught it to fly," Admiral Kira observed. She did not sound amused anymore. Inside the Indomitable, Captain Minho sat in the command chair. Around him, his bridge crew worked at their stations. The bridge was cramped and functional, full of screens and manual controls. Everything was designed for redundancy. If the computers failed, humans could operate every system by hand. "All stations report ready," his first officer announced. Minho activated the communication channel. "Galactic Council, this is Captain Minho of the UHNS Indomitable. We are prepared to begin the demonstration." Vreltoth's voice came through clearly. "Very well, Captain. The first scenario will test your defensive capabilities. Combat drones will attack your vessel. Survive for 5 minutes and you pass. You may begin when ready." "Understood," Minho said. He switched to internal communications. "All crew, this is the captain. Battle stations. Show them what we can do." Across the ship, 5,000 humans moved to their positions. In the fighter bays, pilots climbed into their craft. In engineering, Chief Engineer Yuna checked her systems one final time. At weapons stations, gunners prepared their targeting computers. And in the medical bays, doctors readied themselves for casualties that hopefully would not come. The first wave of drones launched. There were hundreds of them, small and fast, programmed with combat algorithms from a dozen different species. They swept toward the Indomitable like a swarm of metal insects. The observers watched carefully. This would show whether human shields could withstand modern weapons. The drones opened fire, sending streams of energy bolts toward the carrier. The bolts struck the shields. The Indomitable's defensive barrier flickered and sparked. Alien observers nodded knowingly. The shields were weak, exactly as the specifications had shown. Then the drones entered range of the point defense system. What happened next shocked everyone watching. Thousands of cannons activated across the carrier's hull. They were small weapons, but there were so many of them. They began firing in coordinated patterns, creating walls of metal projectiles in space. The kinetic rounds moved incredibly fast, guided by targeting computers that tracked hundreds of targets simultaneously. Drones began exploding. The metal projectiles tore through their hulls with brutal efficiency. The swarm tried to adapt to find gaps in the defensive fire, but there were no gaps. Every approach vector was covered by overlapping fields of fire. Every movement was predicted and countered. In less than 2 minutes, half the drone swarm was destroyed. The survivors tried different attack patterns, but it did not matter. The point defense system was relentless. By the 3-minute mark, every drone was debris. Silence filled the observation deck. That was not supposed to happen. The drones were programmed by experts. They should have gotten through. Perhaps the first wave was too simple, Vreltoth said, but his voice had lost its confidence. Launch wave 2. The second wave emerged from the storage bays. These drones were larger, equipped with energy shields and heavier weapons. They were designed to fight capital ships. There were fewer of them, only 50, but each one was a serious threat. They approached more cautiously, using asteroids for cover. Their shields were rated to withstand sustained fire from conventional weapons. The observers expected the humans to struggle against these. The Indomitable's weapon batteries tracked the new targets. Captain Minho studied his tactical display. "They think shields will protect them," he said calmly. "Launch missiles. Pattern Delta 7. Across the carrier's hull, launch tubes opened. Missiles erupted into space, dozens of them. Simple cylindrical shapes without sophisticated guidance systems. The observers laughed. Missiles were easy to intercept. Every species had countermeasures, but these missiles were different. They accelerated hard, far harder than normal projectiles. Within seconds, they were moving at a significant fraction of light speed. The drones tried to intercept them, but the missiles were too fast. Point defense systems could not track them. Countermeasures could not catch them. The first missile struck a shielded drone. The shield absorbed the energy of the explosion, just as designed. But the shield could not absorb the kinetic energy of an object moving at relativistic speed. The drone simply vaporized. The impact turned it into expanding gas and molten metal. One by one, the shielded drones died. The missiles were not elegant. They were not sophisticated. They were simply moving so fast that nothing could stop them. Mass times velocity equals force, and at these velocities, the force was devastating. The second wave was destroyed in 4 minutes. The observers no longer whispered jokes about human technology. They whispered questions about how this was possible. Admiral Kira studied her sensor readings. "Their missiles use chemical propulsion," she said slowly. "Chemical propulsion. Something we abandoned millennia ago. But they are using it at scales we never considered. The fuel-to-payload ratio should make these missiles impossibly expensive. Unless," one of her officers said quietly, "unless they manufacture them cheaply enough that cost does not matter." On the observation deck, Hana allowed herself a small smile. Taesung remained impassive, but his eyes showed satisfaction. Ambassador Jiwon simply nodded, as if this was exactly what she had expected. Vreltoth clicked his mandibles nervously. "The final scenario. A capital ship engagement. Your vessel will face a simulated battlecruiser, equipped with full military-grade weapons and defenses. This will test your true combat capability." "Understood," Captain Minho replied. "We are ready." The simulation battlecruiser was enormous, nearly as large as the Indomitable itself. It possessed the latest technology: plasma cannons, quantum targeting systems, adaptive shields that could reconfigure to counter specific weapons. It was a fortress killer, designed to destroy the most powerful ships in any fleet. It opened fire immediately. Plasma bolts, each one carrying enough energy to destroy a small ship, hammered into the Indomitable. The human shields flickered and failed. The plasma struck armor directly, melting through layers of metal. Explosions blossomed across the carrier's hull. Atmosphere vented into space. Fires erupted in several sections. The observers leaned forward. This was it. The human ship was taking real damage. Surely now it would withdraw or be destroyed. But the Indomitable did not withdraw. It did not even slow down. It absorbed the damage and kept fighting. Its weapons blazed, targeting the battlecruiser with everything it had. Railgun rounds struck at incredible velocity. Missiles followed precise attack patterns. The battlecruiser's shields held, but they were being tested. Inside the carrier, damage control teams rushed to breached sections. They sealed doors, contained fires, and rerouted power around damaged systems. Chief Engineer Yuna coordinated the response from her station, directing teams with practiced efficiency. "Hull breach on Deck 7, Sector 12, someone reported. "Seal it," Yuna ordered. "Emergency bulkheads are holding." Team 3, repair the coolant line before the reactor overheats. Captain Minho watched his ship take damage and felt pride. This was what the Indomitable was built for. Not to avoid damage, but to survive it and keep fighting. "Launch all fighters," he commanded. Full assault pattern. The fighter bays opened and 300 small craft poured into space. Each one carried a human pilot. Each pilot brought creativity, intuition, and the ability to make split-second decisions that no computer could match. The fighters swarmed the battlecruiser like angry hornets, and that was when everything changed. The exhibition hall stretched for miles inside the massive space station. Hundreds of species had gathered here. representatives from every corner of the galaxy. Their ships floated outside the viewing ports like jewels against the stars. Each vessel was a work of art, sleek and elegant, glowing with contained energy. Commander Tae-sung stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His uniform was simple compared to the elaborate outfits around him. Next to him, Lieutenant Hana shifted nervously. She was young, fresh from the academy, and this was her first major diplomatic event. Ambassador Ji-won stood calm and patient, watching the crowd with experienced eyes. The human delegation had been given a presentation slot. It was not a prime time. Most of the important species had already shown their new warships earlier in the day. The humans were scheduled near the end, almost as an afterthought. When their turn came, Tae-sung activated the holographic display. The image of their newest ship appeared above the platform. It was enormous, dwarfing most vessels in the harbor outside. The UHNS Indomitable hung in the projection, rotating slowly so everyone could see it. The first sounds were not applause. They were snickers and whispered comments. The ship looked nothing like the graceful alien vessels. It was a massive rectangle of metal, covered in armor plating that gave it a brutish appearance. Weapon batteries jutted from its hull at regular intervals. Heat vents and engine ports were visible across its surface. It looked industrial, like something built in a factory rather than designed by artists. High Magistrate Vreltoth stepped forward from the assessment committee. His insectoid body clicked as he moved, compound eyes studying the projection with obvious disdain. "What propulsion system does this vessel use?" he asked, his translator turning his clicks into standard galactic speech. "Nuclear fission reactors," Tae-sung replied evenly. "6 primary cores with backup systems." The hall erupted in laughter. Several species made gestures of disbelief. Nuclear fission was ancient technology, something most civilizations had abandoned thousands of years ago. Admiral Kira of the Luminary floated closer. Her energy form shimmered with colors that suggested amusement. "Surely you jest, Commander. Even the most basic species use fusion at minimum. Antimatter is the standard for any serious military vessel." "We use what works," Tae-sung said simply. Vreltoth's mandibles clicked rapidly. "And your weapon systems? Please tell me you have progressed beyond chemical explosives." Hana spoke up before Tae-sung could respond. "We use kinetic weapons primarily. Railguns, missile systems, and point defense cannons. We also have some directed energy weapons, but they are secondary systems." The laughter grew louder. A delegate from the Crystalline Collective actually doubled over, their body chiming with the sound of breaking glass. "Kinetic weapons," Vreltoth repeated slowly. "You throw metal at your enemies? How delightfully primitive." "Our shields," Hana continued, her voice tight with controlled anger, "are supplemented by layered armor, titanium steel alloys with ceramic composite layers." "Armor," Admiral Kira said, and her tone had shifted from amusement to something like pity. "Physical armor. You still build ships that expect to be hit. We build ships that survive being hit," Tae-sung corrected. The holographic display shifted to show technical specifications. The numbers told a story that made the assembled aliens shake their heads. The Indomitable was massive, yes, but it was slow by galactic standards. Its weapons had shorter range than plasma cannons. Its shields were rated far below what most species considered acceptable. A delegate from the Voidwalkers, a species that had mastered quantum technology, spoke up. "How many crew does this museum piece require?" 5,000, Tae-sung answered. Gasps echoed through the hall. Most modern warships operated with crews of a few hundred at most. Many were fully automated. 5,000 living beings on a single ship was considered wasteful and dangerous. Why? The Voidwalker asked. "Automation is far more efficient. Humans adapt better than computers," Tae-sung said. "We trust our people." Vreltoth approached the hologram, studying it closely. "Your ship is too large, too slow, too heavily crewed, and uses technology my ancestors would have considered outdated. It is a flying fortress built by primitives who are playing at war without understanding it." Hana took a step forward, but Ambassador Ji-won placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. The older diplomat stepped forward instead, her voice calm and measured. "High Magistrate, you are correct that our technology differs from yours. We do not dispute that. However, we believe the Indomitable represents a significant advancement in human capabilities. We would welcome the opportunity to demonstrate its effectiveness." Vreltoth's laughter clicked through the hall. "A demonstration?" You wish to embarrass yourselves further? We wish to show what our ship can do, Jiwan replied. The High Magistrate consulted with his committee members. They whispered among themselves, mandibles and tentacles and energy forms moving in animated discussion. Finally, Vreltoth turned back to the humans. Very well. We grant your request. In 3 days, you will take your crewed vessel to the proving grounds. There it will face standard combat scenarios. We will observe and assess whether humanity deserves its current military classification. The way he said it made clear he expected the humans to fail. The crowd seemed to agree. As the human delegation left the platform, whispers followed them. Words like primitive and backwards and embarrassing drifted through the air. Outside the exhibition hall, Hana finally let her frustration show. They treated us like children playing with toys, she said, her hands clenched into fists. They did, Taesung agreed calmly. It makes me so angry, Hana continued. We worked for decades on the Indomitable. Our best engineers, our greatest minds, everything we learned from exploring space, it all went into that ship. I know, Taesung said. Then why did you just stand there and take their insults? The commander looked back at the exhibition hall, where alien ships continued to gleam like expensive jewelry. Because in 3 days we will show them what human engineering can actually do. Let them laugh now. Let them think we are primitive. It will make the demonstration more effective. Ambassador Jiwan smiled slightly. The High Magistrate believes he has granted us an opportunity to embarrass ourselves. He does not realize he has given us exactly what we wanted. A chance to prove ourselves in front of the entire galactic community. What if we fail? Hana asked quietly. Taesung turned to look at her. His face was weathered from years in space, marked by the hard work of bringing humanity to the stars. Lieutenant, do you know why we build ships like the Indomitable? Why we use old technology and thick armor and human crews? No, sir. Because we are humans. We do not give up. We do not quit when things get hard. Our ancestors crossed oceans in wooden boats, not knowing if they would survive. They built cities in deserts and on mountains. They went to space in rockets that barely worked. We are here because we refuse to fail. Again and again and again. He smiled slightly. So no, we will not fail. We will show them what crude human engineering can accomplish. The 3 humans walked through the station corridors, past aliens who whispered and pointed. Above them, through the transparent ceiling, the stars shone eternal and cold. And somewhere out in that darkness, the Indomitable waited. In 3 days, the galaxy would learn an important lesson about humanity. The fighter swarm moved like nothing the galactic observers had ever seen. 300 small craft, each with a living human inside, each capable of independent thought and action. They did not follow rigid attack patterns. They did not move in perfect formation. They moved like a living thing, chaotic and unpredictable. Wing Commander Deho led the attack from his cockpit. Around him, his instruments showed the battlecruiser's shields and weapons. Behind him, through the canopy, he could see the scarred hull of the Indomitable, his home and his purpose. All wings, this is Deho, he transmitted. Free engagement. Find the weak spots. Make them count. The fighters split into smaller groups, each attacking from different angles. The battlecruiser's defensive systems tried to track them, tried to predict their movements, but the quantum targeting computers could not process human unpredictability. Each pilot flew differently. Each made choices based on instinct and training. Some fighters drew fire, dancing through weapon arcs while others slipped through the gaps. Some made seemingly reckless charges that turned into perfect attack runs. Some hung back, waiting for opportunities that only human eyes could see. The battlecruiser fired its point defense weapons, destroying several fighters. The pilots died instantly, turned to vapor by plasma, but their sacrifice created openings. Other fighters exploited those openings, launching torpedoes at weak points in the shields. Admiral Kira watched with growing amazement. They are using manned fighters, she said, actually putting living beings in those tiny craft. It is barbaric. It is reckless, she paused. It is brilliant. The torpedoes struck true. Human pilots had identified where the shields were weakest, not through sensor readings, but through observation and intuition. The explosions created cascading failures in the battlecruiser's defensive grid. Sections of the shield collapsed. The Indomitable immediately focused fire on the exposed areas. Railgun rounds punched through armor. Missiles exploited the breaches. The battlecruiser tried to compensate, tried to adjust its defenses, but the human pilots kept finding new weaknesses. They moved too fast, thought too creatively, adapted too quickly. Within 8 minutes, the simulation battlecruiser went dark. Its shields collapsed completely. Its weapons fell silent. The test was over. The Indomitable hung in space, damaged but victorious. Fires still burned on its hull. Atmosphere still vented from breaches. But it was still fighting, still functional. Vreltoth stared at the display in disbelief. "This is not possible," he said quietly. The scenario was designed to be nearly impossible. Capital ships do not defeat battlecruisers without support. Ours just did, Taesung said simply. But the real shock was still to come. Captain Minho opened a channel to the observers. "Galactic Council, this is Captain Minho. The demonstration is complete. We are beginning damage control and repairs. We will be ready for inspection in 6 hours. 6 hours? Vreltoth repeated. You took significant damage. Repairs should take days, even weeks. 6 hours, Minho confirmed. We can conduct most repairs using onboard facilities. Chief Engineer Yuna appeared on another channel. She was covered in soot and coolant fluid, her uniform torn. Behind her, the engineering deck was a scene of controlled chaos. Crew members welded damaged sections, replaced burned-out circuits, and fabricated new components using industrial machines. Council observers, if you want to understand our ship, you should see this, Yuna said. She gestured to the camera to follow her. The feed showed the interior of the Indomitable. It was nothing like the clean, elegant interiors of alien ships. It was industrial, functional, crowded with equipment and people. Pipes ran along ceilings. Wires were bundled and secured with metal ties. Everything looked used and worn. Yuna walked through the engineering section, explaining as she went. The Indomitable is not just a warship. It is a mobile factory. We have manufacturing facilities for almost everything we need. Metal fabrication, electronics assembly, ammunition production, even a small shipyard for fighters. She stopped at a large machine that was actively producing something. This is making replacement armor plates right now. We mine asteroids for raw materials if needed, or we recycle damaged components. Nothing is wasted. The camera showed crew members welding fresh plates over damaged sections. They worked in teams, moving with practiced efficiency. Some repairs looked crude, rough welds and bolted patches, but they were functional. The ship was healing itself. Your nuclear reactors, Admiral Kira said, her voice carrying over the channel. They provide power for all this manufacturing? Yes, Yuna confirmed. Nuclear fission provides enormous amounts of reliable power. Our 6 reactors can run for 30 years without refueling. They power not only our weapons and shields, but also our factories, life support, everything. We could operate independently for years if necessary. She moved to another section where crew members were loading newly manufactured missiles into launch tubes. Our weapons are simple by your standards, but simple means we can make more of them. We manufacture ammunition constantly. When we run low, we make more. Our fighters are modular. We can build new ones or repair damaged ones using the same facilities. Vreltoth watched the feed with a strange expression on his face. His compound eyes reflected the industrial chaos of the human ship. This is not how warships are designed, he said. No, Ambassador Jiwan agreed. This is how human warships are designed. We do not build them to be perfect. We build them to survive and keep fighting. Yuna continued her explanation. Our armor is thick and simple because we can repair it. Our systems have manual backups because humans can operate them if computers fail. Our crew is large because people can solve problems that machines cannot. Everything about this ship is designed for one purpose: to keep fighting no matter what happens. She paused at a viewport showing the damaged sections of the hull. Crew members in spacesuits worked on the exterior, making repairs in the vacuum. We do not expect to avoid damage. We expect to survive it. That is the difference between our philosophy and yours. The observers fell silent, processing what they were seeing. This was not advanced technology. This was something else entirely. This was sustainability. This was endurance. This was a ship built by a species that understood warfare at a fundamental level. Captain Minho appeared on the feed again. He stood on his bridge surrounded by his crew. Behind him, screens showed damage reports and repair progress. Council observers, perhaps you think our technology is primitive. You are correct in some ways. We do not have antimatter reactors or quantum weapons, but we have something else. He gestured around the bridge. We have 5,000 people on this ship. They are engineers, pilots, gunners, technicians, doctors, and cooks. They all have one thing in common. They refused to quit. Our ancestors survived on a harsh world by being stubborn and creative. They built civilizations through determination. They reached space through trial and error and sacrifice. That heritage is built into every system of this ship. Minho pulled up a schematic of the Indomitable. You see a crude vessel with old technology. We see a ship that can fight for months without resupply. You see simple weapons. We see weapons we can maintain and manufacture anywhere. You see thick armor. We see protection we can repair with basic materials. You see manual controls. We see systems that work when everything else fails. He closed the schematic. The Indomitable is not designed to impress you. It is designed to win wars. There is a difference. Ambassador Jiwan spoke up from the observation deck. High Magistrate, the demonstration is complete. We await your assessment. Vreltoth was quiet for a long moment. His mandibles clicked slowly, a sign of deep thought. Around him, other council members whispered to each other. Finally, he spoke. I must consult with the full council. What we have witnessed today requires careful consideration. Your vessel is unlike anything in our experience. I will not render judgment hastily. He turned to face the human delegation directly. But I will say this. I mocked your ship as crude. I called you primitives playing at war. I was wrong to be so dismissive. Your approach is different, but it is not without merit. We will reconvene tomorrow. As the channel closed, Hana let out a breath she had been holding. We did it, she said quietly. We showed them what we can do, Taesung corrected. Now they must decide what it means. Outside, the Indomitable continued its repairs. Crew members worked through the night, welding and building and fixing. The damaged sections slowly disappeared under fresh metal. New missiles filled the launch tubes. Replacement fighters rolled out of the construction bay. The ship healed itself, proving its design with every repair. And throughout the galaxy, the recording of the demonstration began to spread. Species that had dismissed humanity watched the battle. They watched the fighters swarm. They watched the ship survive terrible damage and keep fighting. They watched the crew repair their vessel with tools and determination. Humanity had come to the stars. And the stars were learning what that really meant. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Every major civilization received footage of the demonstration. What had been intended as a humiliation had become something else entirely. The humans had not just passed the test. They had exceeded expectations in ways that made the galactic powers uncomfortable. Emergency council sessions were called on dozens of worlds. Military strategists studied the recordings frame by frame. Analysts tried to understand what they had witnessed. And slowly a disturbing realization began to take hold. Humanity was different in ways that went beyond technology. Admiral Kira sat alone in her meditation chamber aboard her flagship. She was a being of pure energy, and when troubled, she liked to dim herself almost to nothing. The recordings played on a screen before her. She watched the human fighters swarm again and again, trying to understand their movement patterns. There were no patterns. That was the problem. Each pilot flew differently. Each made unique decisions. They coordinated without rigid structure, adapting to each other and the enemy simultaneously. It was chaos that somehow became effective tactics. She pulled up humanity's historical files. The Council kept records on all spacefaring species, but she realized now that no one had really studied Earth's past carefully. Why would they? Humanity was new to space, barely a century old as a galactic presence. They had achieved faster-than-light travel recently, had built a handful of colonies, had just begun exploring beyond their local systems. But what Kira found in the historical files shocked her. Human history was not like other species' histories. Most civilizations developed technology gradually, discovering principles through peaceful research. Many had been guided by older species who found them and shared knowledge. Some had discovered ancient caches of technology left by precursor races. Humanity had none of that. They had built everything themselves from first principles through trial and error, and their history was soaked in blood. Kira read about human wars, not one or two conflicts, but thousands. Continuous warfare spanning their entire recorded history. Humans fought with sticks and stones, then bronze and iron, then gunpowder and steel, then explosives and machines, then nuclear weapons and beyond. Every advancement came through conflict. Every technology was tested in battle. She found something called World War II. In 6 years, humans had killed over 70 million of their own species. They had built weapons of devastating power and used them without hesitation. They had firebombed cities. They had deployed atomic weapons. They had done terrible things to win. And when that war ended, they did not stop building weapons. They built more, bigger, more terrible. They aimed nuclear missiles at themselves, thousands of them, enough to destroy their entire world several times over. They lived under that threat for decades. Kira realized something that made her light flicker with concern. Humans had evolved under constant threat of annihilation. They had survived not by being peaceful, but by being more dangerous than anything trying to kill them. That mentality was built into their culture, their thinking, their approach to every problem. The Indomitable was not crude, it was practical. It was a weapon built by a species that understood war at a level most galactic civilizations had forgotten or never known. On the council station, an emergency full session had been called. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered. The chamber was massive, with sections for different environmental needs. Some species needed water, others methane, others pure vacuum. The council accommodated everyone. High Magistrate Vreltoth called the session to order. We are here to discuss the human demonstration and what classification to assign their military capabilities. Before we deliberate, we have invited a human cultural expert to provide context. A human woman entered the chamber. Her name was Sunhee, and she was a historian who specialized in military development. She was older, her hair gray, her face marked by years of study. She looked around at the assembled aliens with calm confidence. "Thank you for inviting me," Sunhee said. "I understand you have questions about human military philosophy. Your species approaches warfare differently than ours," Vreltoth said. "We wish to understand why," Sunhee nodded. "The answer is simple, we had to. Most species here achieved space travel peacefully. You developed technology through research and cooperation. Many of you were contacted by older civilizations who guided you. Some of you found ancient technology and learned from it. Very few of you had to fight your way to the stars." She activated a holographic display. It showed Earth turning slowly. Humans had no guides, no ancient caches, no friendly aliens to teach us. We had only ourselves in a difficult world. We built everything from nothing. And we built it while fighting each other. The display changed to show human history. Wars played out across the globe. Empires rising and falling, technology advancing through conflict. For thousands of years, humans fought. We fought over resources, territory, religion, politics, everything. We were not peaceful. We were not kind. We were survivors in a world that offered no easy answers. She showed weapons development. Stone axes became bronze swords, became steel blades, became guns, became artillery, became missiles. Each advancement was marked by warfare. Every major technology humans developed was tested in battle. We learned what worked by using it to kill. This is not something we are proud of. It is simply what happened. A delegate from a peaceful herbivore species spoke up. "But you achieved space travel. Surely that changed your nature." Sunhee smiled sadly. "We achieved space travel during a period when we had enough nuclear weapons to destroy our entire planet. We reached the moon while planning how to kill each other more efficiently. Space did not make us peaceful. It just gave us a new place to survive." She pulled up specifications of the Indomitable. The ship represents thousands of years of hard lessons. We use nuclear reactors because they are reliable and we understand them completely. We use kinetic weapons because we know exactly how they perform. We use thick armor because we know we will be hit and we need to survive. Everything about our ships comes from experience paid for in blood. Admiral Kira spoke from her section. "You said your ancestors crossed oceans in wooden ships. Is that metaphor or history?" "History," Sunhee confirmed. "Humans explored our world in vessels made from trees, powered by wind with no guarantee they would survive. Many died, but the survivors learned and they built better ships, and eventually we mapped our entire world. Then we went to space in metal ships powered by controlled explosions, again with no guarantee of survival. Again, many died, but we learned." She looked around the chamber. "You see, our technology is primitive. You are correct in one sense. We use older principles, but we have refined those principles through constant use and testing. Our missiles use chemical propulsion, yes, but we have spent 200 years perfecting that propulsion. Our armor is simple metal, yes, but we have tested it against every weapon we could imagine. Our ships are crude, yes, but they work." Vreltoth clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "You said something important. You expect to be hit. Most species design ships to avoid damage through speed. shields, or stealth. You design ships to survive damage. This represents a fundamental difference in philosophy. Yes, Sun-Hee agreed. Because we know from experience that you cannot avoid all damage. In every war we ever fought, people got hurt and equipment broke. The side that won was not always the side with better technology. It was the side that could keep fighting despite the damage. That lesson is built into everything we make. A crystalline delegate chimed a question. But surely there is value in elegance? In efficiency? Your ships consume enormous resources. They do, Sun-Hee admitted. But they also operate independently for extended periods. A fleet of human ships can fight a war far from home without supply lines. We manufacture what we need. We repair what breaks. We adapt to circumstances. This is expensive, yes, but it works. She closed her display. I know our approach seems barbaric. I know you think we are primitive. Perhaps we are, but we are also alive. And we are here and we built ships that can fight and survive. That counts for something. The chamber was quiet. Council members consulted with each other in dozens of languages and communication methods. Finally, Vreltoth spoke again. We will deliberate further. But I think many of us are beginning to understand that humanity represents something unusual in the galaxy. A species that reached the stars without help, without guidance, through determination alone. This creates certain capabilities that we must acknowledge. As Sun-Hee left the chamber, Ambassador Jiwan met her outside. You did well, Jiwan said. I told them the truth, Sun-Hee replied. Whether they accept it is their choice. Inside the chamber, the deliberations continued. But they were interrupted by an urgent message from the Galactic Rim. Long-range sensors had detected something emerging from dark space. Something that should not be awake. Something the galaxy feared more than anything else. The Void Swarm had returned, and everything was about to change.